Oh, you guys know I'm going to lose it. You know I'm going to lose it. And my heart's been racing for the past 2.5 hours, and I wish I was joking. I'm not. I'm really not joking, everybody. Mets fans, Brewers fans, whoever you are first chiming in live on a replay, buckle the hell up. There's a lot of profanity that's about to be said. I have so much I have to unleash. So I'm going to do a quick 3, 2, 1, go countdown to everyone first chiming in, especially my replay viewers. There's a lot of you guys who have not watched the show before are probably wondering, why is this guy going to get tomato face and scream expletives for the next however many minutes it's going to be. Please know that we are genuine fans here at the WardyNYM platform, and when Wardy has something to say, he's going to let it rip, and he doesn't hold back. So I'm going to do a 3, 2, 1, go for each and every one of you. First and foremost, I appreciate all my live viewers chiming in live on a replay, all my members. Thank you guys so much. To any donations, to any live members, anything like that, I cannot address any comments for the first couple minutes here, and you're going to understand why. We're going to do 3, 2, 1, go. Say it with me. Say it with me, Ray. A 3, a 2, a 1, a go. Ramon fucking DeJesus. You want to know who Ramon DeJesus is? Ramon DeJesus decided to be the ump show, decided in a game where the Mets needed to make sure that they were at least getting the same calls as Milwaukee. In Milwaukee, where the Mets are 3 and 18 over their past 21 games in this godforsaken city, all because the Mets simply cannot get the job done against the Brewers in Milwaukee. Tight calls right from the beginning, gifted to Milwaukee and nothing given to the Mets. Ramon DeJesus squeezes the Mets. Sean Manaea gives up a grand fucking slam to Rhys Hoskins. It's deja vu from March all over again. There is no difference whatsoever. Bad fundies defensively by the Mets. Francisco Lindor makes his return. He gets on base 3 times and it still doesn't matter. Ramon DeJesus had the absolute nerve to go up to Carlos Mendoza in the 4th inning after Francisco Alvarez is called strike 3 on a breaking ball out of the fucking zone, clearly, just like the first damn call that was thrown his way in that 10-pitch at-bat. A tremendous job by Francisco Alvarez. Carlos Mendoza is absolutely fuming. How can you not be? Everyone is on Mendoza's side, except this godforsaken piece of shit you call Ramon DeJesus. You absolute bum. I hope you are no longer Major League Baseball as soon as humanly possible. You are exactly the reason why America's pastime continues to fail at times, day by day, night by night, because there's no consistency with your with your fucking officiating. I can't stand it. I know Sean Manaea threw an absolute meatball to Rhys Hoskins. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about everything that the Mets did wrong in this matchup. Do not get it twisted. The Mets did not do themselves favors here. They absolutely stubbed themselves in the foot. They had opportunities to pounce where the ump did not screw them, and they screwed themselves. So no, this is not going to be a rant where I have any schmuck coming in here telling me right here, right now, saying, oh, Wardy's ranting. The ump lost in the game as if Manaea wasn't serving up meatballs. Buddy, he had 1 strikeout in not even 4 innings. He was batting practice. I'm well aware. How do you think that makes me feel about my confidence level? If the Mets even make playoffs, I know the question and the comment that many of you guys have is playoffs. What do you mean playoffs after this? The Mets currently have the Arizona Diamondbacks, as we know, still trailing right now, still losing to the San Diego Padres. Should they still lose, the Mets will stay afloat there in that wild card spot in which everything will basically be tied or close to. The Mets still have a chance to control their destiny here. But when you want to talk about everything imaginable that could have went wrong in one single game to begin a series, step right up and meet the effing Mets here in Milwaukee. Between the horrendous ump show, we're going to break down every single godforsaken call this piece of shit you call Ramon DeJesus had to throw our way today. We're going to talk about how the Mets offensively, led by Pete Alonso, had nothing to show for it. Mark Vientos, Jose Iglesias, Francisco Lindor. What do these 3 have in common? They actually give a shit. Outside that, you got some Brandon Nimmo hits. We appreciate that. El Troll trying to get on base, but it sucks when we see El Troll Alvarez, our stud catcher, now down with injury. A clear back flare-up. My guy couldn't even get up laying down from third base without help and was walking gingerly off the field. It is back spasms. We have to hope and pray it's nothing more than that. I'm sorry, guys. I know that I'm absolutely hot-headed, and I understand that not everyone appreciates this kind of show when we do our post-game coverage, but I also can't lie to each and every one of you. I am so beyond pissed after a game like this, because in every facet of it, from the offense to the defense to the pitching, this was to a T, to an effing T, and including the ump show in which the Mets get screwed, just like what we saw there back in March. Yes, you heard this correctly. Carlos Mendoza, who's been ejected from ball games 2 or 3 times this year. The first time he was ejected and suspended goes back to March 31st when the Mets threw behind Rhys Hoskins after he already did his damage against the Mets, which made no sense then. It didn't warrant an ejection the way that Mendoza had himself in that suspension. Regardless, it was an ump show then, it's an ump show now, and this same piece of shit, Ramon De Jesus, is the same guy that threw out Jorge Lopez just for talking some shit there from the third base side. He wasn't even the official ump, he was just umpiring third base. I gotta calm down for a second. The reason why I have to calm down for a second is because when I get this hot-headed, the anxiety spikes, and I know I'm losing years off my life. So I really gotta calm down. I apologize, but I'm trying to speak for each and every one of you. I am so fucking disgusted after a game like this. And yes, I'm absolutely upset with aspects to the Mets and what they did wrong in this. But it goes far beyond just what the Mets did wrong in this. It's the fact that they had nothing, and I mean no help whatsoever in this matchup when it was blatantly there for Milwaukee. Literally, for a Milwaukee Brewers team that somehow... Okay, here, hold on. Shout out Michael Mayer for having this set up. Pitch 1 and 10 were both called strikes. Just look at this. Pitch 1 and 10 here were both called strikes. You see where 1 is? You see where 1 is. You see where 10 is. I know the ump show has been horrendous all season long. I'm aware of that. But in tight ball games like this, when there's so much on the line, you would think that there would be a level of competence from guys that are paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to do their jobs wrong every single night. But no, of course not. That's what you have. Then we have another blown call. This was from earlier in the game. Imagine calling this a fucking strike. Imagine calling that a strike up Pete Alonso. Yeah, we're going to call it. We're going to call that a strike. I didn't know. Where's Jeff McNeil? He might as well get ready to golf because that's the type of fucking pitcher teeing up. Are you kidding me? Look at 2. Look at 2. Look at 1 here. Look at this. Look at 4. Look at fucking 4. I know that was a fairly close pitch to take. If I'm Vientos, I'm hacking there, even if you're just hacking foul. Still, terrible call. Pitch 6 was called a ball strike. Pitch 6 was called a strike. Pitch 6 was called a strike from Ottavino to Ortiz here. Are you, like, really? What are we, like, yeah, that happened. Yep, that happened. Ramon De Jesus, who's clearly doing his best Angel Hernandez impression. He wants the new plaque. He knew that Angel got out scot-free there out of the union, got an absolute bag from MLB because they couldn't stand his ass trying to come out with all these stupid-ass lawsuits over the past number of years. He's finally out on a settlement. So you know what Ramon De Jesus said? Let me step right up and fill in those shoes, because that is exactly what he's doing, and he's not only a piece of shit, but this is something that's going to sting with Mets fans for a very long time, especially if things drag out terribly over the next couple days for the remainder of this series here in Milwaukee. Thank you guys all so much for being in here live on a replay. I greatly appreciate every single one of you. Alvin with the $2 haul. Thank you so much for that, Alvin. You're the absolute best. Thank you. I realize that, of course, the title of the show is not the title of what it's supposed to be. So, actually, no, the title is what it's supposed to be. So, never mind. Title and thumbnail is as expected, guys. Let's just rapid fire. Alvin, JD needs to sit down. We need another bat as DH. JD Martinez stepped right up and gave the Mets absolutely nothing yet again in this one. Almost like he's absolutely ice cold, and almost like after that double play that he grounded into to begin the ball game, his ass should have been riding the pine. Zach Fleikerton, thank you so much for the $5 haul. Says Ramon De Jesus effing Christ. At least the D-backs might lose, so we won't lose ground on the tiebreaker. All we can say right now is play for each day. You got to play for each day. We're well aware of that. I know, and I understand that this is not the end of the season for the Mets. I also understand that Francisco Alvarez doesn't return anytime soon, and if the Mets continue to labor the way that they are right now, how can we be optimistic or excited about anything whatsoever? I will have a CBD gummy after this, JTB. You know, shout out Via, former sponsor of the channel. We appreciate them, but that's not what I'm talking about right now. What I'm talking about is that just like we saw in March against the Milwaukee Brewers to kickstart the Mets homestand for them to go 0-5. We saw to a T, piss poor defense by the Mets, a lack of length from their starters. Sean Manaea was absolutely god-awful from the start of this one. Not just the Rhys Hoskins grand slam. He wasn't locating from the beginning. Did he get squeezed on some calls? Yes, and he needs to respond to them. He didn't respond to them well at all. He instead decided to throw meatballs to Rhys Hoskins, throws meatballs left and right. That's going to have you with a 1 strikeout game and not even 4 innings. And my big concern now with someone like my big concern here with Sean Manaea is the same concern that I now have with Luis Severino. I understand that you can just kind of fall yourself into playoffs, just sneak in, and then be a completely different team when postseason play begins. We've seen that in recent years with the Philadelphia Phillies 2 years ago, treading water leading to postseason play. The Arizona Diamondbacks last year just cracking postseason play. Again, you don't need to play your best baseball in order to have success come postseason time, but God willing, if the Mets could even find themselves in postseason time and postseason area, they need their starters to step up. Not only the offense, which we'll get into plenty here, they need their stars to give them length. And what did Luis Severino and Sean Manaea do? Not give the Mets length and their most important starts of the season. Yes, there are calls that went against them. Yes, there are factors that are out of their control, but the factors that are in their control are way too prominent to absolutely brush aside or throw under the rug as if it doesn't exist. That's a red flag for me. That is bugaboo number one. Luis Severino didn't have it, and we all started there with the bad funnies with Alvarez, funny enough, in the third against Atlanta, the throwing error, and then that was that for Sevy. Then we fast forward tonight, Rhys Hoskins grand slam on a meatball to begin this ball game, and then we see after there in the 4th inning, Sean Manaea is already done. We already are going to see Carlos Mendoza pulled from this game. Everything that could have went wrong and what I would absolutely call a hellhole you call this ball game in Milwaukee against the Brewers is what the Mets have themselves facing. I know about the Knicks trade too. I'm a big Knicks fan for those that don't know. Dante Big Ragu is one of my favorite players. I'm heartbroken to see him gone. Julius Randle had Jekyll and Hyde tenure with the New York Knicks. I know that the Knicks will be fine without him, but I wish both them well. I'm excited with Cap, but I can't appreciate any of that shit right now because I'm too infatuated. I'm too focused on this Mets team and how they absolutely had a chance to make a statement in game 1 of this series, and they did nothing with it. This was after they were given availability to be on the field yesterday to get some early workouts in as they arrived in Milwaukee earlier in the day. I know you're not going to win every ball game, and I know that if the Mets win 2 out of 3 in this series, that's still great for the most part. But what I do know is that a loss like this is not only deflating, but with the unknown status of Alvarez right now, and with the lack of certainty as to what you're getting in Lindor, knowing that he's not 100%, there are so many things going against this Mets ball club right now, and the one thing that I have seen time and time again with this Mets team that has really driven me up an absolute wall is that when it comes to the pressure, when it comes to the Mets finally having expectations where they know they need to step up, you don't know what you're getting. Mets pitching has carried them so much in the second half this season, and their offense has been up and down that we know. The offense continues to be up and down that we have seen as of late, which is not helping at all, and now I look at how does this Mets team handle the pressure cooker. Right now, they're looking more and more like the team that is sadly laid over and died when they have a need, when they shouldn't. I know they had a tremendous West Coast trip. They took care of business against the Padres. It was a split that we know. They took care of business. They won 2 out of 3 against Arizona. That was a huge stretch. We all know that. Even having said that, however, it doesn't change the fact of what the clear bugaboos still are for this Mets team. Can we get a check on Frank the Tank? Who knows? Frank probably, his head finally exploded or something. That's the only thing that I could assume would happen now. There. Alvarez is not on the IL. What the hell are you talking about? No one's, I didn't say Alvarez was on the injured list. I don't know if anyone did in the chat. Never said that. I said Alvarez is injured because he is. He was pulled from today's game because he couldn't stand up with terrible back spasms. Another back injury to a Francisco in this lineup, a Francisco that is mightily important for the Mets to get where they want to be this year, which is postseason play. So that's the latest there of Francisco Alvarez, everybody. So now let's rapid fire to a T, 1 through 9, everything that transpired in this ball game. Unhinged Shanks today, he's acting like a clown priest. Takes one to know one, brother. Happy to have you in here. Michael, how are you? Let's see, Chris, how you doing? Rebecca, how are you doing? Everybody, first chopping in live on a replay. Thank you guys so much. I don't think I missed a let's see, I did miss one. Josh, if you know, you know. Appreciate the donation. You will be on the couch tonight. Yes, that is true. Hope you and your lady are well. Anthony with a $5 donation says, is his grades on this game up yet? Awful game all around. Need a team meeting tonight and we're refreshed tomorrow. Thank God for the Padres right now. As long as the Padres hold on, nothing changes for the Mets in postseason play in their alignment, other than the Atlanta Braves right being there with them now, as the Atlanta Braves secured a victory today because the Kansas City Royals were absolutely ice cold against a Max Fried who looked like he was going to pitch a frickin' Maddox. Thankfully, he didn't, but in what very well was potentially one of the final starts of Max Fried's career in Atlanta with the Braves, he dominated, sadly. Michael, thank you for the $10 donation. Wardy gets $30 and Mets get nothing. I hate the fact that that's true right now. I don't want to be taking your money. I wish you could be sending it to the Mets. I wish you could be looking to buy playoff tickets. But here's the thing. The Mets had their playoff sales yesterday. It's almost like it's always bad juju when we start this shit from the beginning. Hope that room is soundproof. Don't wake up Shay. Yeah, Shay's thankfully out like a light right now. I'm far enough from my amazing 3-month-old son that he doesn't have to hear his dad rant the way that he is right now. So that is a good thing, yes. Let's see. Gonna blame the umpires. Buddy, pay attention. It's more than the umpires. Everyone from the jump in the show, please listen to me. I know it comes down to Sean Manaea not getting the job done. I know it comes down to Mets not hitting with runners in scoring position and leaving 6 on base. Don't you think I fucking know that? It's not about that. It's about the greater aspect of this. And the Mets didn't get a foot straight up their ass by Ramon de Jesus on the calls tonight. This game could have been different to a degree. Mendoza should have never been pulled. All that shit should have never happened. I'm not saying the Mets would have won if that didn't happen. All I'm saying is the Brewers and this absolute shit show of officiating did nothing to help and absolutely added to making this ball game so much worse than what it originally was from the start for this Mets team. Can we please get that of an understanding? Can we grasp that? Please, I'm asking you genuinely. All right, breaking down the ball game. Mind you, the Mets heading into tonight's game had the best first inning ERA in all Major League Baseball. Perfectly jinxed by Gary, sadly, as the Mets entering tonight's ball game at a 2.69 nice ERA there in the first inning. Sean Manaea giving up grand slams, it doesn't fucking matter there. A lot of F-bombs tonight. Really, really bad. That's why I gave you guys the warning earlier in the show in my defense, so I apologize. All right, guys. In the first, Lindor gets on with a walk. Francisco back, taking a good at-bat against Frankie Montas, an at-bat they absolutely should have won. Frankie Montas, a guy that the Mets should be beating up on in this matchup, did not beat up on him nearly enough. I know he only won 4 innings or so. It doesn't matter. The Mets should have done more here, and it really sucks that they didn't. Lindor gets on with a walk to kick off the ball game because Frankie's going down and away with him on a lot of his pitches. Vientos strikes out looking. Bad call to kick off the ball game. Already screwed there by Ramon de Jesus, and that starts this one, mind you. A clear call out of the zone. Should Mark have swung there? I think that's when you hack away foul because I think it's too close personally. But was it still a bad call by Ramon? Absolutely. Both things can be true. Nimmo then with a deep opposite field fly out, just shy of potentially making this a 2-run early Mets lead, and then Alonso grounds out to end the ball game. Polar Bear Pete was not existent. I'm actually wondering if he played the ball game tonight, because if he did, he was nowhere to be seen from start to finish. In the bottom of the first, Terrain with a single, and that is off Lindor's glove. Lindor, who honestly looked like if he was fully healthy, maybe would have made that catch, wasn't able to. That allows Terrain to get on base and then steal a bag. Bryce Terrain will go on to steal his 50th bag against the Mets this season. 50th overall on the year, I like to add. Not all against the Mets, but insane amount of stolen bags by this Brewers team that stole at least 6 against the Mets tonight. And you want to know what killed the Mets so much in the beginning of the season? You want to know why the Mets were ultimately 11 games below? Oh, awesome. Francisco Alvarez is feeling much better. He says he will see how he feels tomorrow. Isn't ruling out playing. Thank God. That is huge news. Breaking news, everybody. Per Mike Puma of the New York Post, Francisco Alvarez is feeling much better. He's hoping to be back in the line for the Mets as soon as tomorrow. He just had a clear back spasm and a flare-up, so unlike what Lindor's been actually going through with it, not a terrible issue with the back, but one that's nagging every day. Thankfully, in the case of Alvarez, his back just completely tightened up on him. I've been there. We've all been there. I've had my back tightened up by simply doing the simplest thing, not by going second and third base the way that Alvarez is, but that is at least somewhat good news if we're going to take any positives tonight, because if Alvarez said he's cooked, he's done for the year, then we might as well just say all the nails are in the coffin for the Mets, because even with Luis Torrens, Alvarez has been vital to this Mets pitching staff, and he has been vital to the Mets offense that we have seen over the past couple weeks. He has been huge. Now, to get back in this one, everybody, as we're breaking down this ball game, Mets lose this one, as we know, by a final score of 8-4. I ranted my head off for the first 15 minutes of the show, and I apologize for that, but I'm being completely honest, and I'm never going to waver from being genuine with my emotions as an irrational fan that is absolutely fed up after seeing a game from hell the way that we saw this one. Terrain, though, gets on base, as I mentioned. Then we see he steals third base then with 2 outs after stealing second base. Contreras with a walk. Adames with a walk. His bases loaded, 2 outs for Sean Manaea. 2 out hitting killed Sean Manaea in this one, mind you. The sweeper just missed inside on Adames. For some context, the call that was called a ball there to Adames was the same exact separation that Vientos had from his strike 3 call, which had him frozen for the half inning prior. Bullshit. Absolute nonsense. This is where the ump show started. It wasn't just a close call on Vientos, but it was then gifting that call then to the Brewers as if it wasn't the exact same thing. Sean throws a sweeper down and in. It just misses there, the bottom right corner, and they call it a ball. Okay, I understand, but where the hell is that call when Vientos gets the same thing, if not more obnoxious? I digress. So bases loaded, 2 outs here for Sean Manaea, and all he needs to do is not throw a meatball down the dick to Rhys Hoskins, who absolutely froths out the mouth at the idea of killing the Mets like he does every single year. If he's in a Phillies uniform, if he's in a Brewers uniform, he knows how much we hate him, and he thrives off of it. What do? You throw him 94 heat right down the dick. Sayonara, it's out of here. Color me shocked. Grand slam for Rhys Hoskins, and just like that's a 4-0 deficit in the first inning for the Mets. The ball game was over right then, right there. But the Mets would try to rally, and they would have some attempts here, but they would fail. And as we see in the top of the second, Jose Iglesias continues his hit spree now to 18 straight games. He gets on with an opposite field single. After Jose gets on with a single, then we see Winker, a 3-pitch strikeout. Winker had terrible at-bats today, which really pissed me off. I know he got hit by a pitch in one of his at-bats, but I thought Winker was going to pounce on Frankie Montas, and he had nothing. He had absolutely square nada. Nothing. Another underwhelming game by Jesse Winker, where I thought he was going to do much better, just like how I thought I was speaking into existence that he would be able to hit Schwallenbach well. Mind you, Jesse has tremendous numbers not only against, what Frankie Montas has been doing, basically giving up a 900 OPS to lefty batters this year, but also what we have seen in Jesse Winker's clutch ability this year. His numbers are all great in those categories. Couldn't step up for the Mets in this one. He wasn't the only one, but stuck out a bit to me because I did have the expectation that Jesse was going to be that guy tonight, and he was anything but. Speaking about not being anything for the Mets, which was the majority of the Mets lineup in a lot of ways in this one, as we continue to break down here in the inning for the Mets, we would see Winker there down on 3 pitches, as I mentioned. Then JD Martinez, who gets the start because of course he does, he grounds out there in a double play to end the inning. Mind you, this is after Willy Adames bobbles the transfer there to second base to Terrain or whoever it was. They still get the double play down because JD Martinez is one of the slowest batters in Major League Baseball. That's where it comes back to bite the Mets in the ass. Speed killed the Mets. Just like how the Mets and Adam Ottavino were giving up stolen bags left, right, and center all year long the first 2 months of the year is exactly to a T what we witnessed in this matchup. There was zero difference whatsoever. It was more of the same. And speaking of more of the same here, the Mets would go down in that inning because of that double play. So we had the bottom of the second, right? Perkins reaches on a Lindor throwing error, and then he steals a bag because of course he does. Lindor didn't get to plant his feet exactly how he wanted. It wasn't a terrible throw, but I can understand why he's given the error there. Lindor, not surprised that he's a bit rusty with the back, basically just making sure he could play somewhat healthy every single inning and be effective enough. That hurt the Mets in that instance, which sucks because after that, Terrain would then drive in a run with a double to increase the lead, now 5-0 Milwaukee Brewers, as Mr. Tyrone Taylor, the former Milwaukee Brewer, known for the acrobats there in center, left, and right field, who did have a great catch later in the game to rob someone of at least a double. Before we got there, though, Tyrone mismanages the dive. It's short. The ball goes past him, and that is what kills us there. It's 5-0, and then the runner goes on to steal third base. Thankfully, nothing else transpires, but the Mets are in a 5-0 hole in the first 2 innings. So, yes, I understand. We can gripe about the offense not doing enough tonight, but I think there's also something to be said about this team, especially being in a hole the way they were early because the ump did us no favors, and Sean Manaea sadly did us no favors either. Let's keep it a buck. I love Sean. He's been our Simone Southpaw this year. I can also confidently tell each and every one of you that Sean Manaea pitched like shit tonight from the beginning. He didn't look comfortable at all from the start. As soon as he knew that he was going to get squeezed the way he was by this ump, he had no recipe to really go about this adversity. Instead of embracing it and trying to rectify things only got worse. And when Sean Manaea has to throw his cutter for the first time in 11 starts, you know there's an effing problem. So right then and there, we had ourselves a big issue because you knew Sean wasn't going past tops 5 innings in this one, and he couldn't even give the Mets 4. On the night, Sean Manaea, 3.2 innings, 7 hits, 6 run, 5 earned runs, 2 walks, 1 strikeout baseball. That is an easy throwaway. That's a 0 out of 10 for me. That is far and away probably, I think, the worst start we have seen from Sean Manaea this season, or second to worst. I'm so disheartened by his performance today because I know that the umpire did not help at all, but this is where you need to hanker down. This is where you need to step the fuck up. This is time. This is crunch time, and Sean Manaea and Luis Severino are kind of showing exactly why you shouldn't expect the Mets to give either of them big overpays come this offseason. Will they take them back on certain prices on bridge deals? Absolutely. Will you see the Mets offer Sean Manaea 4 or 5 years? Not a chance in hell that's going to happen. The only way that changes is if we see them step up in postseason play should the Mets get there. But now what big problem we have is that Severino and Manaea both had a lack of effort, and their lack of effort went in hand with the Mets now dropping their back-to-back games. I know it's not all their fault, but they didn't help. And the starting pitching we have to look at because the offense will continue to be Jekyll and Hyde. This is shit we have been through each and every year, especially this season. We know how it goes. We know when they're hot, they're hot. We know when they're not, they're not. But the one thing that has carried this Mets team when they have been on their runs, when they have had the best record in Major League Baseball since the end of May, has been their collective pitching. Without their pitching, they will get nowhere. And that is my biggest takeaway on the negative end for this Mets team. What bothered me most from their outing, that is excluding the umpire officiating, that is excluding the other factors that are really out of their respective control. That is what I have to say about that. So the Mets are down 5-0 in this ball game, which already sucks, right? And then we see in the top of the third, Sal Frelick sadly exits tonight's game, wishing him a speedy recovery. Sal tried to make a catch in foul territory against the Mets there. He's out for the ball game because they have this little opening there in right field on the wall in Milwaukee, which is so stupid. Again, it's like they want their players to get hurt there. Obviously, I'm joking. I'm just pissed off about this ball game still. He gets caught basically half on the wall and half in this pocket, which makes his, instead of fully embracing to hit the wall, his whole body doesn't hit the wall, and it just completely messes up his hips. He doesn't look good. He's out for the rest of the ball game. Wishing Sal a very speedy recovery there. I just hope that for the sake of when he recovers, if he does return to the series, that he doesn't do anything against the Mets, obviously. Then we see after that, Alvarez gets on with a walk. Tyrone Taylor with a deep fly out. Francisco Lindor with his worst at-bat of the day as he strikes out. That was far and away his worst. I thought he was fine for the most part after that. Even as uncomfortable as he looked at times tonight, I thought that was just the bad one for him. Vientos with a 2-out, 2-run dead center shot, his 27th home run of the year for Mr. 27 because he gives a shit. He cares. Mark Vientos, who I half joked about in our last postgame show when he was the lone scorer for the Mets against the Braves, the same way that I feel now. If it isn't for Marky V, the Mets have no life, they have no spark, they have no nothing in this matchup. Vientos makes it a 3-run ball game, still well within reach for this Mets team, and they could keep things afloat. That would be the problem. They couldn't keep the ship afloat. It would continue to sink and ultimately all the way back down to the bottom of the ocean, the way that we saw here against the Milwaukee Brewers. So as it's now 5-2, we get to the bottom of the third. We see Contreras get on with a single, who's now top 7 in all of, I believe, Major League Baseball, if not just the National League, in hits. He's been having a tremendous year, William Contreras, who shout out actually to a follower of mine that I interacted with in spring training, Port St. Lucie, who had the boldest claim that William Contreras will be an MVP caliber player this year. He isn't in the MVP discussion all that much, but he is a tremendous player, and I can actually see where you have that thought process with quite a bit, with great defense and great offense as well from Contreras. Someone that I'm sure the Atlanta Braves would like to have back, even though Sean Murphy, of course, had a 2-run shot today against the Royals. I digress. We're back in this one. It's the top of the fourth, everybody, with 2 outs after Alonso had another terrible at-bat. Pete, terrible at-bats today. That's all I got to say. He did have a hit. I know Alonso had a single. Now that I think about it, it was later in the ball game, but he had some bad at-bats when the Mets needed him to not have bad at-bats. Winker gets on with a hit by pitch. JDM gets on with a walk. So you got 2 of your slower guys on base with 2 outs. What do the Mets do after this? They have themselves the following transpire. Francisco Alvarez is trying to grind that at-bat. Francisco Alvarez is doing everything in his power to keep this inning alive. First pitch, clear ball, that's called for a strike. 10th pitch, clear ball called for strike 3. That's where Mendoza gets thrown out. That is why we started the show as hot-headed as I did. That is why I'm going to be throwing darts at Ramon De Jesus' head on my wall tonight. That's why if I had that freaking, the voodoo punch dolls that you just put Ramon De Jesus' face on it, do whatever the hell you got to do. Obviously, I'm half joking here, but seriously, I cannot get over when umpires decide that their ego has to trump everything. Your job as an umpire is to make the game better. Your job is to keep it entertaining. Your job is fucking far from doing what you did tonight, Ramon De Jesus. And what sucks most is that he's protected in their union. Not that unions are a bad thing, but in the case of him, and it's the same case of Angel Hernandez, these guys simply don't go anywhere and they are never held accountable. Nothing, nada, ever. That continues to be the biggest epidemic that we have in major sports today, not holding officials accountable, whether it's NBA, whether it's NFL, whether it's MLB. It's the same bullshit over and over and over again. There are guys that get paid off. I can tell you that for an absolute fact. I've interacted with former umpires who have told me off record that they have absolutely seen with their very eyes, not that they have done it themselves, but there have been payoffs in games in years past. That continues, and I'm not saying that was the case here at all, because there's no reason for the Brewers to pay off an umpire when they clinch playoffs and are just trying to be, you know, a rally killer against the Mets here. All I'm saying is that it's an absolute joke and it's disgusting. And as each passing day happens, I cannot wait more and more for an automated strike zone, because yes, you're losing the human element, but you're gaining efficiency and you're gaining how the game is actually supposed to be played. Not this bullshit that you call officiating that was far from it, and this 8-4 loss for the Mets in Game 1 against the Milwaukee Brewers. I don't know that for a fact. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. Why would I lie? There's no reason for me to lie. So let's just start there. Literally. And there's no conspiracy against the Mets. Find that a little bit hard to believe. But yes, I'm not going to say, oh, everyone has it out for the Mets right now. No, I'll just tell you the officiating was god-awful. It was the worst officiating in all Major League Baseball by a decent stretch tonight, I'm going to go on a limb and say. When we see those report cards of the umps on X every single day, we will further see just how horrendous he was in this matchup. Now, as I reel back in this one, Mets lose 8-4, everybody. Thank you so much for chiming in live on a replay. If you haven't already, please make sure to smash that like and subscribe on your way, and greatly appreciate it. And thank you. Let me know what you guys have to say about the following loss for the Mets. If you're a Mets fan or whoever you're a fan of, I want to hear your thoughts right here, right now. For my live viewers, my replay viewers, comment them down below as we always do. Now, let's get into this. Guys, let's break it down. Exactly. As someone who has been betting for decades and also as proof of that, and here's the thing. There's no reason for me to lie about any of this shit. At all. There's so many things within the industry that I cannot even speak publicly about that I would otherwise like to, because I understand that that's not my place to say or speak. There are certain things that are common, that are in public eye, that you can just do your homework on if you guys pay a little attention, and then you realize, wow, officials have been paid off in the past. Who would have thought? Not saying that at all happened in this Milwaukee Brewers game. I'm just trying to make a point. Those things do happen. To suggest that they don't is just turning a blind eye to something when you're just deciding to do exactly that and going about the life that you want to live, which is far from reality. Now, as we get back in this one, everybody, the Mets lose 8-4, and this is where all hell breaks loose. Mendoza gets thrown out of the ball game. Alvarez stays in the game. He somehow doesn't get thrown out there because Mendy does all the work for him. As we then advance to the bottom of the fourth with 2 outs, we see Terrain get on with a single, Mitchell with a double, Trio with an RBI infield single. Great play by Jose Iglesias to make sure that doesn't get out of the infield. Francisco Lindor said he felt good enough in his return tonight. I dove at first base and it didn't hurt, so I'll take that. That is the quote from Lindor himself, for anyone wondering what is Lindor's health status, how is he feeling, all those kind of things. But as we reel back in the bottom of the fourth here, as they would increase their lead there, that being the Milwaukee Brewers, at that point it would then become 6-2 sadly. Iglesias with a tremendous glove play there, but could not get the throw to Alonso in time. That's what happens when you're throwing literally laying on your back. Not going to follow him at all, just a tremendous effort that fell short. That makes it 6-2 as we head then to the 5th inning. In the 5th inning with 1 out, Francisco Lindor with an infield single. It's chopped to third base. Not the typical hack that Lindor takes from the left side of the plate, but he took advantage of kind of how the alignment was there with this little shift down the third baseline, was able to get the chopper there in time because of how Ortiz was playing deep there at third base. That gets Lindor on for the second time tonight. Nothing else transpires in the inning. Jose Buda with a 1-2-3 5th inning. Great work by him after he comes in to relieve Sean Manaea the inning prior. Then we see in the 6th inning, Jose Iglesias gets on with a single. Winker with a double play ends it. We then here see in the bottom of the 6th, Taylor robs, and I mean absolutely robs Perkins of a double. Tremendous glove grab there by Tyrone Taylor in this one. It's sad that it didn't come in a victorious fashion. It came in a faltering fashion as the Mets lost 8-4. As we see in the top of the 7th, Alvarez then, who's out of the ball game in this one after sliding to third base. Things have changed since then. He's feeling much better, so I'm not going to dwell on that at all. Lindor seemed like he was going to exit tonight's game initially after the top of the 7th inning. That ended up not being the case because we would see the Mets try to have a rally going there in the inning. In the bottom of the 7th, they would try to get some things going, and they would be the following folks. Pardon me, was that the 7th or was that the 8th? I believe that was the 8th inning, actually, because then we see in the 8th inning, Lindor, who ends up staying in the ball game, we would see Chourio rob Harrison Bader of a pinch hit double. Nimmo would come in to score. Mets get 2 runners on there with less than 2 out there in the 8th inning, and Brandon Nimmo and Pete Alonso with back-to-back hits or so. After that, however, we don't see much because Bader just falls short there. It was an interesting option by the bench there, not in Carlos Mendoza, but rather there in their, why am I blanking so bad right now on their bench boss, former Toronto Blue Jays manager. Literally, I don't know why I'm blanking so hard right now, but I am. So I'm going to reel back into that if I need to in a second here. But that makes it still the Mets at this point, they're losing 6 or 7 to 4, right? So they're within reach. They're within distance here, but things would get worse because as it's a 7 to 4 ball game after the 8th inning, we head to the bottom of the 8th inning rather, and that's where Alex Young throws a 91-mile-per-hour meatball straight down the dick to El Kraken, Mets legend for those that remember him for a week last year. Gary Sanchez makes it 8 to 4 ball game. Yeah, it's almost like when you throw a soft tossing southpaw who probably shouldn't be in this bullpen to begin with right now, throwing meatballs down the dick. Not surprised that that's going to lead to home runs for a Brewers team that knows how to competently hit when they need to competently hit, right? You see the trend there? So the Brewers would go on to win this ball game 8 to 4. The Mets would be shut down in the 9th inning after Francisco Lindor would be the one and only runner to get on base. Lindor, who was the Mets' first runner on base, ends up being their last. He gets on base 3 times in a Metsian fashion where they have nothing to show for it. John Gibbons is the name. Thank you so much. I don't know why I was having such a brain fart there. I think that's just because I've been rambling and absolutely so hot-headed as I've been in this show. Let's see. Ever feel like that? When it comes to the baseball gods, I do, David. When it comes to the baseball gods, I definitely feel like that at times. Absolutely. Let's see. Lamar, thank you so much for the $5 donation. Lamar says, I can see the Mets not bringing Pete back and trade for Brent Rooker. Brent Rooker doesn't need to be... I'm trying to think... I think Brent Rooker is a free agent at the end of the season. I don't know if Brent Rooker is a guy that you'd be trading for. I could be wrong, though. I don't know his contract status. I'll tell you this. Pete Alonso's future... far from certain as to what it's going to be by the season's end, should the Mets not crack postseason play. Eric says, let's make one thing very clear. I hope Ramon was paid off. If he just missed 20 calls, both balls and strikes, and all of them against the Mets due to incompetence, that's so much worse. 1,000% worse. And you want to know the worst part of it all? That's exactly it. Because what do the Brewers have against the Mets outside of just being literally their thorn in their side? Outside of being the Mets' kryptonite this season and in years past, in Milwaukee specifically, there's no actual ill will between the Brewers and the Mets organization. Unless this is their way of saying, F you for trying to pry David Stearns from the first year Steve Cohen became owner. David didn't want to be in the org from the first time that happened, and that's the reason why we're paying off Ramon DeJesus. And that's the case, then okay, but obviously that is a situation that's far from reality, and now to reel back into reality, this was just a shit show by a guy who acts like he has more control than what he actually does. And the worst part of it all is that there will be zero accountability. There will be nothing that comes out of it, and the MLB is going to brush it under the rug just as they do because they have nothing to combat with the union of the umpires. They have nothing at all. As long as that union is there, it'll be the demise of us fans, not only Mets fans, but baseball as a whole, that wants to see accountability for MLB officiating. It is never going to happen until we hopefully see not only the strike zone change, but ultimately what we'll see in a robotic strike zone, a robotic umpire that's been utilized at every minor league level now. All that's missing is a major league level. We saw it in spring training. We will see it more next year, and I cannot wait to see these schmucks one by one out of the game of baseball because they do not deserve to be here. They are pieces of shit, and just like, you want to know what they remind me of truly, and this is not to get on a tangent whatsoever, but just to rear in for 1 second, when you think about so many people in politics, regardless of the side that you're in, that have just been there, that do absolutely nothing. I don't care if it's Democrat, Republican, whatever. They're there, and nothing's going to happen, and they're going to continue to be there year after year after year. Nothing is going to change. They're going to sit on their ass, collect their check, and do nothing about it. Enter MLB officiating, and there's not much all that difference, especially when you're headlining a guy, Ramon DeJesus. He not only puts a terrible name on the rest of MLB officials, but he quite literally is impacting the game so negatively that this is the kind of shit that not only carries over for fans for the remainder of the season, but this is stuff that carries over when they're building their petitions and when they're doing everything in their power to try to reach an end to this absolute joke that you call an show in Major League Baseball. Zach, thank you so much for the $2 holla. I greatly appreciate that. Zach says, JD's stance has an anterior tilt, screws the swing. Yeah, I mean, JD's a free swinger that we know, and when things aren't going in JD's way, it's really bad, especially when you're a grizzled vet of a DH who is not in your prime anymore and is not playing consistently, so it's also harder for him to stay locked in on the day-by-day. The Mets can't risk playing JD Martinez every day day right now because he's been a liability. It's crunch time right now. JD Martinez, a former World Series champ, knows what he needs to do in pinch hitting situations and the times that he's starting, yet he has continued to show a lack of ability to step up when the Mets have needed it. Absolutely sucks, but that's just what it is right now. Appreciate the donation, JD. Hope you're doing fantastic, my friend. Cherno, great member, says, worst call since Knobloch's phantom tag in 99. Appreciate you being in here, Cherno. And yeah, it was a horrendous, absolutely horrendous call. I mean, the fact that you're referencing Knobloch's phantom tag in 99 is absolutely insane. Let's see here, guys. What you guys got for me? What's the most realistic scenario of us making it after this loss, 40? Now, that's a good question. And there are various scenarios that the Mets can still make playoffs. So let me rattle off just a couple for each and every one of you. Because now that the Mets lost, they can't have a sweep option. So now, all right, guys. There are still a shit ton of options the Mets can make playoffs. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to tell you every single one. I'm just going to rattle off how many there currently are. And they are as follows. So just listen up, everybody. Just lock in and listen to this. Out of the current scenarios right now that I see, there is, I'm looking at, is that Arizona that I'm seeing? That is the Braves. Okay, so we need to have Arizona at least losing one game. So I see one scenario. I see two scenarios. I see three scenarios. I see 4 scenarios. I see 5 scenarios. I see 6. I see 7. I see 8. I see 9. I see, let's see. I see 10. I see 11. I see 12. Pardon me. I see 11. No, 10. 10. 10. Okay. We're at 12, 13, 14, 15, 14, 15. We're at 25 to 30 scenarios still in which the Mets can still make playoffs, meaning that either they win 2 out of 3 against the Brewers and the Arizona Diamondbacks lose 2 out of 3, or they get swept, or they win 2 out of 3 and the Braves falter in their series and they lose 2 out of 3. There are so many different routes, but simply put, there's 25 to 30 left in which the Mets can still figure this out and crack postseason play. But all they need to do to avoid all this nonsense and avoid us trying to be mathematicians when we're far from it is to simply win baseball games. And in case you guys want to know what I'm referencing a huge spreadsheet right now, which has all the scenarios on what the Mets records would be in the 3-game set against the Brewers, what the Diamondbacks and what the Atlanta Braves need to do over the next couple days. And then as we get into then the doubleheader on Monday, if the Mets need to play or not. Is there a route for the Mets after losing tonight's game to still avoid the doubleheader? And as I'm double checking right now, I'm not seeing anything. I don't believe I'm seeing anything. I'm pretty sure my memory's not mistaken. Oh, wait, no, there are still routes. My mistake. There are still routes, actually, that the Mets can avoid playing the Monday doubleheader, and they are the following. I'm going to rattle these off because these aren't as much, okay? So this is what needs to happen for the Mets to not play the doubleheader on Monday. They would need themselves to win 2 out of 3 this weekend, the Arizona Diamondbacks to lose 2 out of 3, and the Braves to sweep. The Mets would also need to win 2 out of 3, Diamondbacks lose 2 out of 3, Braves just win their series. Mets win 2 out of 3, Braves lose 2 out of 3, and Diamondbacks lose 2 out of 3. Mets win 2 out of 3, and the Diamondbacks get swept, and the Braves sweep the Royals. The Mets win 2 out of 3, the Diamondbacks are swept, and the Braves win their series 2 out of 3. The Mets win 2 out of 3, the Diamondbacks are swept, and the Braves lose their series. They lose 2 out of 3. So those are the routes the Mets can still have where they can find themselves avoiding the doubleheader. 3 more for you, which are as follows. The Mets can lose their series this weekend, wait, let me double check. The Mets can lose their series this weekend, have the Diamondbacks be swept. They have to be swept in all 4 scenarios here, and the Atlanta Braves need to either sweep, win 2 out of 3, lose 2 out of 3, and that's that. They already won their first game. So there's, again, a good amount of scenarios for the Mets to still avoid Monday. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're at 11 or 12 where they can avoid Monday. We're at 25 to 30 in which they can still crack postseason play with the doubleheader as a factor or a non-factor. I know your head hurts. All I'm trying to say is this shit means nothing as long as the Mets just do what they're supposed to and win the effing games. They got to win the effing games. They were handed what the Arizona Diamondbacks were losing. Last time we saw against the San Diego Padres. I'm going to double check right now. The Padres are up 5-3, but that's a tight ball game. So who knows? Who the hell knows what's going to happen there? I'm not going to get my hopes up at all. That is still a close ball game as there's a runner on second for AJ Puck facing off against Donovan Solano. They're a great contact hitter. Padres are trying to tack on another insurance run to make it a 3-run lead and not a 2-run lead against Arizona. Diamondbacks responded with their 3rd run there in the 6th inning. And as we currently take a look at the wild card standings to each and every one of you watching live on a replay, as we mentioned, the Mets are currently tied up with the Atlanta Braves. Braves have the tiebreaker because they're 1 game up on the Mets and their in-season play against each other this year. If the Arizona Diamondbacks lose tonight, that'll be massive because then things will stay afloat there for the most part. But we need the Diamondbacks to lose, and I hate the fact that we have to worry about these things as well. I hate having to worry about all these other teams because when I say, oh, even if the Arizona Diamondbacks F around and lose tonight, it doesn't instill my confidence in the Mets pitching, nor does it instill my confidence in this Mets team heading into tomorrow's matchup. I know, you got to brush it on the rug, you got to forget about it, you got to focus on tomorrow right away. But here's the problem. As much as I want to just focus on tomorrow right away, if the Mets come out flat tomorrow and show us more of the same shit that we saw tonight, I'm just going to further continue to lose it because they themselves are then rolling over and dying when they simply cannot be doing that. Do you need to play your best baseball before cracking postseason play? No, you just got to make postseason play and then go from there. But if we know anything about this Mets team, if we do want to connect them at all to 2022, feel free to do this should you wish. Not that you need to, but you can. If we look back in 2022, the Mets faltering in September the way that they did, heartbroken, being swept the way that they were by the Atlanta Braves, completely changed the dynamic of the clubhouse. Pete Alonso has spoken openly about this as well this season. Now, as we fast forward to this year, the Mets are free-falling in their final series of the year. Let's say they free-fall. Let's say there's a scenario where they just have at best a split on Monday, but they still crack postseason play by Monday's end, right? Let's just say that scenario happens. They're not playing confident baseball heading into postseason play. My concern there is that unlike the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Phillies for the past 2 years, those are two teams that did not roll into playoffs comfortably. Phillies did this in 2023, but in 2022, they did not. They played pretty wishy-washy baseball all the way until the very end when they cracked postseason play and then made it all the way to the World Series. How did they do that? Because they found a moxie. They got a fire under their ass when they need it most. I have no clue if this Mets team can find a fire under their ass in these tight ball games should they crack postseason play. So that's why when I look at Sean Manaea and I look at Luis Severino, there's one angel on my shoulder that's telling me, Wardy, don't worry. If the Mets make playoffs, these guys are going to bounce back. They're going to clutch up. We're going to get 6 strong innings and it'll come down to the offense. Then there's a devil on my shoulder, and that devil sadly tends to be a reality with the Mets a lot of the times because it's all hell in Mets land right now in tonight's game. If you couldn't tell by the title right now, then I got this schmuck telling me on my shoulder saying, Wardy, Sevy and Manaea crumbled in their most important starts of the season. You really think they're going to step up in the most important games for the Mets should they crack postseason play? It's going to be more of the same. Sevy and Manaea have god-awful playoff numbers. You think it's going to change? It's going to be more of the same. I'm trying to listen to the angel because I know that Manaea and Sevy are not the same pitchers that they were last year. I know that they're not the same pitchers that they even were in the first half of the season. But having said that, this is where the frustration comes into play. This is where the head games come into play because as we're trying to process how the Mets are going to go about the next number of days now, they need a lot of things to go their way. They have to control their destiny, and I hate the fact that I sit here to each and every one of you right now, and I don't say in confidence that I believe that the Mets can control their destiny. And that is all because of not only the ump show tonight, but because of the Mets' lack of resiliency in times where they need to show more. They have to show more. There's no other way to go about it. There is no more time. You have to show up now, or you simply are not going to show up in general. So yeah, to say I'm stressed and to say I'm anxious about the Mets right now is a bit of an understatement. They did not get the job done in this one, and now how they look heading into tomorrow, David Pearson needs to step the hell up. He needs to give the Mets 6-7 strong because this bullpen got work tonight, everybody. And we're going to talk about the bullpen. We're going to talk about the offense. We're going to get into those things in just a quick second, everybody. I have been calm this whole time. We got this, Tyler. Michael, if the Mets F around and win this series and crack playoffs still, my man, I'm going to be so proud of you for staying calm, cool, and collected. And I'm not going to be down on myself because I'm an irrational Mets fan that lives and dies with the team night by night, especially in clutch games like this specifically. But still, I will be happy to have my concerns, my pessimisms proven wrong, that the Mets went out there and did the job and did what they're supposed to. It's Quintana tomorrow. It's not Peterson. Oh, my mistake, everybody. Why? I thought it was David Pearson tomorrow. Okay, so it's officially Jose Quintana tomorrow. All right, Jose Quintana's on the bump for the Mets tomorrow. What does that mean? What that means is if the Mets had themselves a doubleheader on Monday, Luis Severino's facing the Atlanta Braves again. That goes without saying now, right? So for all you guys that are pessimistic about the Braves facing Sevy for a second straight time, and not even a week, step right up, baby. It's going to happen again should the Mets have the doubleheader on Monday. So hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully the Mets can somehow, some way still avoid that doubleheader and utilize Sevy for game 1 of playoffs on Tuesday. But Jose Quintana is the starter we have tomorrow. Jose has had his fair share of success against the Milwaukee Brewers. His numbers against Milwaukee are far greater than Atlanta throughout his career. I know that we shouldn't really focus on career numbers much, but Jose has also done a great job in Quintana on really being that natural, that fourth, fifth arm in your rotation every year as a veteran southpaw, a soft-tossing southpaw that has really pitched some brilliant outings for the Mets in the second half of the season. He hasn't been perfect every time out there, but he has held his own with his 3.74 ERA, and we're going to need Jose Quintana to give his best start yet. That is what we need. Tyler McGill Sunday. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. It could be Sevy on Sunday if it's an elimination game for the Mets, obviously, if they find themselves, God forbid, in that scenario. Depending on what happens tomorrow will dictate who the Mets pitch on Sunday. Similar to how the Atlanta Braves are dictating when they're going to pitch. Chris Sale will go directly in hand with if they have an elimination game come up from now up until Monday. So if the Braves face an elimination game, Chris Sale will pitch. If they don't face an elimination game, Chris Sale will then wait and he'll pitch when they begin playoffs should Atlanta Braves crack postseason play. So that's the latest on that, everybody. But before we get into a bit more here, as I want to rapid fire on the offense, what didn't work well in this matchup. I also want to rapid fire a little bit more on the pitching on what didn't work for Sean Manaea in this matchup. And ultimately, how can he rebound if he's going to have a chance to rebound at all for the Mets come postseason play. All that in between is what we're about to break down, everybody. But before we do, let's hear a quick word from our amazing sponsor on the channel that you all know very well, and that is, yes, BetUS. For those that don't know BetUS, BetUS is America's #1 sportsbook and it has you covered for all your sports betting needs. Make sure to check them out tonight or whenever you get a chance by using Wardy's promo code YouTube150. That is YouTube150. That way you too get a 150% bonus on your first deposit, a 125% bonus on your following two for a total of 3 deposits with a bonus. And guys, you guys know the drill by now. We do our 2-leg MLB parlays. I'm not touching the Mets at all for tomorrow's game. Not at all right now. I simply cannot do that at the moment. Maybe I'll have a change of heart tomorrow, but not right now. So what I'm going to focus on for tomorrow's slate of games, Phillies and Nationals there. Nationals took game 1 against the Phillies. I think the Phillies are going to bounce back, but again, depends on the lineup and depends on how many guys are playing there. Dodgers, Rockies, Rays, Red Sox, Astros, Guardians. That's a big matchup. Rangers, Angels, Pirates, Yankees. Oh, baby, these are some spicy matchups for sure. I'm actually going to go here with the 2-leg of the following, folks. We're going to take the New York Yankees at home against the Pittsburgh Pirates money line tomorrow, and we are going to pair that with, yes, the LA Dodgers are an obnoxious one. So we're going to go with the Philadelphia Phillies, assuming that they were going to hopefully have enough stars in the lineup tomorrow there at -210. For their individual bets, it's going to be 10 to win you 758 if you're hammering the money line straight for the Yankees, and it's 10 to win 476 if you're hammering the Yankees money line, Phillies money line rather straight. That's going to be 10 to win you a total of 1595, which would be 2595 total if you actually hit and both teams win for your 2-leg parlay. Good luck to you all that tail your respective bets. Make sure that if you bet responsibly, we're awesome friends at betus.com.pa for all your sports betting needs. Now, to hop back in this one, everybody, let's get into the pitching, because this was a shit show. As you can see, the Mets had to utilize Jose Butto. I'm glad that he didn't have to work 2 innings, because if he did in a loss like this, man, would that have sucked. But now you lost some arms, and I understand. The arms the Mets lost today outside of Butto are not key arms that you're hoping to utilize in the next coming days. But the problem is that the Mets do need garbage time, God forbid, and then in the next 2 days, they're not going to really be able to have it from these guys that usually eat it. So now it's going to be up to guys like Huascar Brosman, Ryan Stank, who we don't know exactly what we're getting every time out there, Phil Maton, who did not pitch tonight. That's huge. If he pitched tonight, the Mets lost. That would have been so much worse. But regardless, as we take a look at the bullpen configuration right now, the Mets had to utilize 5 pitchers in a game that they lost, where they really never had a chance of getting all the way back. And that stings for me. That really does. And Sean Manaea, what worked terribly for him in this matchup is as follows, folks, because the fact that, as I mentioned, we didn't lose Butto. I'm just saying Butto pitched 1.1 tonight, so Butto's not going to pitch tomorrow more than likely, right? The soonest that Jose Butto will pitch for the Mets again will likely be Sunday. Something to bear in mind depending on how tomorrow's game goes. Will we defer to Butto if we have to? Yes, but then you don't have him for Sunday, and then you wonder about Monday in the doubleheader. What I hate so much about the Mets not getting length from their starters in a game like this, just like their previous game against the Braves, is that should they need the doubleheader on Monday, and when you do not have a 27th man, meaning the Mets cannot call up a player without there being a transaction happening to send someone down. They need a man that is not on the 40-man roster for an extra arm should they wish to call upon one there for the doubleheader. So you have a bigger problem that if you are taxed with your rotation in the next couple of days and your bullpen is heavily worked, then your bullpen is heavily taxed and a doubleheader, what could be a do or die for the Mets. That is worst case scenario, and that's a scenario that the Mets could find themselves in if they lose tomorrow night. So we have to hope we don't find ourselves in that position, because then it's really going to be hell for this Mets team beyond what it currently is at the moment. Manaea, though, let's break down a bit on him and what didn't work in this arsenal, because it was ugly. It was shit. It really was. Threw 4 pitches tonight there. They're saying he didn't throw his cutter on Baseball Savant, but that's BS. He did tonight for the first time in 11 starts. The sinker, which was 63% of the arsenal, topped out 96, sat 92. Sweeper, 27% of the arsenal, topped out 81, sat 77. Changeup, topped out 8% of the arsenal, topped out 87, and sat 85. Four seam, just 2% of the arsenal, topped out 92, sat 91. Maybe that's what they were calling the cutter there, which was the four seam. No less, as we looked at the swing and miss, it wasn't there at all for Sean Manaea. And that's why there was one strikeout, and that's what led him to throwing the meatballs that he was doing. I'm not going to deep dive the bullpen. The bullpen was the bullpen. We didn't get the job done. We weren't good enough tonight. On the hitting end, a couple big problems I have. Pete Alonso's first hit at the end of the game is a problem for me. Big problem for me. Jose Iglesias is the most consistent Mets bat in this lineup. No other team offered him a contract in the offseason. Could you imagine that? Insane. Francisco Lindor, everybody, in his first game back, goes 2 for 4, no RBI, a walk, 273 average, 838 OPS, on base 3 times, as I mentioned. Mark Vientos, 1 for 5, but as I told you all heading into the series, I thought Vientos, if he's going to get a hit, it's going to be a big one. Give me a big home run, and that's what he did. 2-run dead center shot, 269 average, nice, and an 853 OPS. 27 home runs on the year for number 27. Brandon Nimmo, 1 for 5 that we saw with a run scored, a couple strikeouts, a 226 average, and a 732 OPS. Pete Alonso, 1 for 4 with a pair of strikeouts and a run scored, a 242 average, and a 797 OPS. Jose Iglesias, 2 for 3, 340 average, 843 OPS, 340 average. Jesse Winker, 0 for 2, 253 average, 765 OPS. Harrison Bader just with the RBI and the sac fly, 241 average, 670 OPS. JD Martinez was horrendous, a walk, 232 average, 721 OPS. Francisco Alvarez, a run scored, 0 for 1, pair of walks that we saw, 233 average, 706 OPS, and thankfully he's in much better spirits than how he looked at third base earlier. Luis Torrens, 0 for 1, 239 average, 693 OPS, and Tyrone Taylor, 0 for 4, 248 average, and a 705 OPS. That is your rundown on the Mets offense that went tonight 0 for 6 with runners in scoring position and left 8 on base, so even worse than what it initially was from the stat I said earlier on in the show here. Just dandy. Just effing dandy. Let's get to some of these donations quick, folks, and then we're going to wrap up the live show because I'm cooked. I'm absolutely cooked. I mean, I ranted way too much about this team tonight. They took a couple years off my life, which is very not nice of them. Don't appreciate it. Mario with the $10 donation says, the Mets missed playoffs. Wouldn't this be worse in 2022? I sure hope so. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think so, for sure, because the Mets have had more peaks than 2022. So yes, I would agree with that. They've been a more entertaining team. They've been a more consistent team all summer long than they were in 2022. So I would agree with that sentiment. The Mets, if they fall short of making playoffs this year, it'll sting so much. Not that we won't appreciate the run that they had, but how they fall short is just a continuation of them not having that it factor on taking that next step. Lamar Lackey with a $5 donation says, I was at the Sunday night game, and when the Mets start with the turning the lights off and the flashing the phone lights on, my first night game at Citi Field. Thank you so much for the donation, my friend. I'm trying to read this. I was at the Sunday night game, and when the Mets start with the turning the lights off and flashing the phone lights on. Oh, okay, so you're just saying that your first Mets game and they were just flashing lights. Is that what you were saying on when they do the transitions with pitchers? Not exactly sure what you meant there, Lamar, so I do apologize if I misunderstood you there. Let's see. What happened to the Wardy song today? We don't play the Wardy song after an L. We haven't done that all year for a reason. As a matter of fact, this is nothing against the jingle, but fuck the jingle. That's the last thing on my mind right now, okay? Last thing on my mind. Right now, all I can think about is how do the Mets approach tomorrow. Jose Quintana against what I believe is going to be Colin Ray. It's not officially announced for the Brewers yet, but I think it's going to be right-hander Colin Ray with over 4 ERA this season. Bear that in mind. Good amount of strikeouts. Man, this one stains. This one really stung, guys. If things go hopefully better tomorrow and Sunday, will you give me a shout out for my staying calm? Yes, Michael. All I ask is that you remind me in the show, because don't take it personal, but I will forget. When I'm interacting with the hundreds of thousands of people that I do every single night here, at times I may forget if one specific person said this. So just enlighten me. If the Mets win their series and things are all dandy heading into Monday, then we'll gladly have that discussion for sure. We're not protesting the jingle. Stop the nonsense, Rebecca. Once again, I think the come down to the doubleheader with the Braves Warriors, yeah, it may very well. It's looking that way. I don't see how it doesn't go down that route at this rate right now. So we'll see. We'll see, everybody. But guys and gals, that is going to do it for the live show. It's an hour. I'm exhausted, and I'm going to try to ground myself and get mentally prepared for whatever tomorrow is going to bring for this Mets team. So until then, have a fantastic rest of your night to evening whenever you're watching this. Thank you all so much for taking the time. I greatly appreciate it. I will see you all tomorrow for both pre- and post-game coverage. Same time, same place, and hopefully, finally, a victorious matchup to discuss. Have a great one, folks. Love you all. Apologies for profanity. Apologies for being as outspoken as I was tonight. It's just one of those nights. Hopefully we bounce back tomorrow. Peace out, guys.